Welcome. I wanted to do a unboxing video for the next Switch, which is the Switch 2 and Mario Kart World and the GameCube Controller. So all three of these things officially launched on June 5th, and I was actually able to get it on June 4th at my local Best Buy because they did a midnight release. So I wanted to start off with what comes inside the box. So inside the box, when you open it for the first time, you get the blue left Joy-Con and the orange right Joy-Con. You also are able to get the screen. Please note that it comes with a thin film covering the screen, so don't peel that off. That is supposed to be on there. You also get a safety manual, a 2.1 HDMI cord, two Joy-Con wrist straps in the corresponding colors for the two Joy-Cons, a Joy-Con grip, a wall charger, and a USB cord. That's all that comes in the box. The box is overall smaller than I thought it was going to be compared to like the Switch 1 box. It's more like a cube instead of like a rectangle. That's kind of cool. I would recommend if you have anything you want to put on, this is the best time to do it. So if you have screen protectors, or if you bought a micro SD express card like I did, I put it on before I activated my Switch for the first time. So to access the micro SD express card, it's actually a slot under the kickstand on the back of the Switch 2. And so small slot, you just kind of push it up in there. I bought the Lexer 512 gigabyte micro SD express card. For those of you who had a micro SD card from the Switch 1, it's not compatible with the Switch 2. You will need a different micro SD express card to make it work. I also had a physical copy of Mario Kart World, so I put that in the top right game card slot as well. I just like my physical cartridges. I could have got a digital version, but I don't know. It just made sense to get a physical. So when you first boot up the Switch 2, it's going to ask you to connect the two Joy-Cons on either side. You can set your location of where you are in the world, and then it's going to have you quickly agree to terms and conditions. You can't move forward until you've agreed. It does make you actually open up terms and conditions and scroll to the bottom. Then you can hit agree. And then it'll ask you to select your Wi-Fi. For my first time setting it up, I didn't have it in the dock at first, so I was doing this over Wi-Fi initially. Then it gives you a quick tutorial on how to take off your Joy-Cons by pressing the button on the back of each one and then using the kickstand to kind of play it in tabletop mode. It does give you an option to skip some of the other tutorials, like how to put on the wrist strap if you already know how. I skipped through those because I already have a Switch 1, so I pretty much know it's the same way. The initial software update took about 2 minutes. This brings the Switch up to version 20.1.0, which is the same version the Switch 1 got updated to back at the end of May. I'm doing this over Wi-Fi at first because I hadn't set up the dock yet. Once I set up the dock, there is an Ethernet port built into the dock, so it makes it a little bit faster if you have you know, an Ethernet port in your next to your router that you can plug in. I chose to do a system transfer from my Switch 1 to my Switch 2 because I did not sell my Switch 1 originally, and I did this system transfer using local communication. Please note that you will need your Switch 1 and the Switch 1 adapter and your Switch 2 close by to each other in order for this to work. You also need your smartphone. So it's going to ask you to scan the QR code on the screen to log into your Nintendo account onto the Switch 2. Process was pretty easy using my smartphone. It also asks you to type in a verification code in order to sync that account onto the new device. I will admit that the system transfer took a bit of time. Even having it connected via Ethernet, it took about 10 minutes and the system had to restart a couple of times. So don't get alarmed if this part is a little bit lengthy. Now, for those of you doing it over Wi-Fi, it may take longer, so just keep that in mind. So after your Switch 2 boots up after the system transfer, it's going to try to download all your previously owned software onto the Switch 2. So you can see in my example, I have Animal Crossing, Fortnite, other things are trying to automatically download. It's just going to run that process in the background. Because I have a physical copy of Mario Kart World, I didn't have to download anything. And there wasn't any day one patch for Mario Kart World, at least. I guess it came that way out of the box, so there was nothing else to download. So I skipped right into starting my settings and setting up the Switch for usage. So the first thing I did was set up Gamechat. So Gamechat is a new feature exclusively to the Switch 2 that allows you to do voice chatting and video chatting with your Switch friends through the system directly. When you first set it up, it is going to ask you to accept terms and conditions. It's also going to ask you to confirm a real life phone number to tie to your Nintendo account through the game chat setting, and it will have you scan a QR code to get that process started. You do not have to use game chat. Right now, game chat is free through March of 2026 because Nintendo wants everyone to get used to this new system, this new feature. But eventually, it will require a Nintendo Switch Online subscription to use after March of 2026. I chose to set up Game Chat first because it did take a while to get it started. I don't know how often I'm going to use it. To be honest, the majority of my friends that I know in real life aren't planning on switching to a Switch 2 on day one. They may get it down the line like around holiday time, so I don't have anyone to chat with at the moment, but it was helpful to see that. After setting up Game Chat, I hopped into additional settings. So I like to get my system up and running before I hop into any game. That's just the way I am, type A personality. So the first setting I went to was under data management, and then under manage screenshots and videos, there's an upload setting. So if you don't want to manually upload all your pictures and videos that you take in game, you can turn on the automatic upload setting, and it will automatically upload pictures and videos through the Nintendo Online app. And then you can have up to 100 pictures and videos, and they'll stay on that for up to 30 days. So it's pretty cool. I turned that setting on right away. I plan on taking a ton of in-game pictures, especially because Mario Kart World has that photo mode in the free roam mode. So I wanted that on automatically. Number 2, under settings, under controllers and accessories, I wanted to update my controllers for both of my Joy-Cons. You don't have to have the Joy-Cons attached to the Switch 2 in order to do the update. It only takes a couple of minutes. Under my audio settings, I wanted to adjust my TV sound because I do have a sound bar that gives it stereo sound. And then almost towards the bottom under audio settings, there's also an option that says test your microphone. There is a built-in microphone in the Switch 2, which is how Game Chat will work going forward. So I wanted to test it out. Just for reference, my Switch 2 is located in my living room entertainment stand, which is about 7 feet away from the couch. But the microphone was still able to hear me really well. I don't have my Switch 2 camera yet. I ordered it from GameStop and it's coming soon, but I will also be showing how that works in the future video. And then under display option and settings, I adjust it for my TV resolution and HDR output. So for reference, I have a Sony Bravia TV, which is 4K enabled with HDR. So I wanted to turn those settings on for my Switch so I can have the most gorgeous display when I'm playing games. Now, finally, the last setting I want to point out for those of you who may have kids or live in households with roommates, or if you plan on traveling with your Switch 2, definitely go under system lock and set a PIN number for your device. I chose not to do this because I live alone and I don't plan on traveling with my Switch, but I see that it could be helpful to have a PIN number just to keep people from messing with your account. Now, for those of us who are huge Animal Crossing New Horizons fans, I personally put over 500 hours in on that game. I wanted to transfer over my island from my Switch 1 to my Switch 2. This works. The method I'm using worked because I did a system transfer, and I'll be sure to include a link in the description for how you can transfer over your island. So the first time you launch Animal Crossing on the Switch 2 after doing your local communication system transfer, it's going to ask you if you want to start a fresh island or if you want to use existing data. Since I've already played on the Switch 1, I wanted to use existing data. On my Switch 1, I had one island with one resident only. I didn't have other people playing on my Switch 1, so it was pretty seamless. I would say that whole process took about 5 minutes. Please click Use Existing Data. It'll ask you which island representative you want to move over. You press that button and it will transfer it over. It looks gorgeous. I will say that even though there was no Switch 2 edition for Animal Crossing New Horizons, it does start up faster, and I feel like it plays a little bit more smoothly. For the few minutes that I did play this Animal Crossing after I transferred the data, it worked fine. I didn't lose anything on my island. Everything is still there. I don't play Animal Crossing as much lately, to be honest with you, just because, it is a 5-year-old game now. But I'm glad to know that I didn't lose my island. That was one of my biggest fears, switching from the Switch 1 to the Switch 2. I had this, I didn't even buy a Switch 1 OLED because I didn't want to lose my island. I was like, I'm determined to keep my Switch island. So I'm glad that Nintendo had the foresight to make it easy for those of us who are huge Animal Crossing lovers. Now, do note with this process. If you transfer your island over to the Switch 2, it won't still exist on the Switch 1, even if you keep your Switch 1. So it kind of erases it from the Switch 1 by doing the transfer. So just keep that in mind if you are worried about that kind of thing. I don't think I'm going to go back to my Switch 1 to play Animal Crossing specifically, but I didn't really care. But you may want to hold off on doing any sort of island transfer if you still want to run it off of the Switch 1. And then finally, I also got an official wireless GameCube controller from the Nintendo store. I wasn't sure how it was going to work with the system. It does come with a charging cable, so it does say on the back of the box, for the first time you use the GameCube controller, please plug it in and connect it to the dock, and it will recognize your controller and sync up. I will do a separate video because I want to test out the GameCube controller using it in Mario Kart World. But to my knowledge, the GameCube controller functions as a regular controller. So it's not just for playing retro GameCube games on the Switch 2. I think it can work as a regular controller. If you look at the top of the GameCube controller, it has the Game Chat button and the Home button, which obviously did not happen on an original GameCube controller from the early 2000s. So it seems like it's compatible 100% with the new system, but I will test that out further and let you know. But these are just my tips and tricks for the Switch 2. I think it's a gorgeous system. I can't wait to dive into it further. Let me know in the comments below if I missed any settings that you think should be tweaked. Thanks for watching.